Absent. Mr. White.
Just double check with a live, Chair. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. We've got no apologies for absence for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, item 1, the minutes, one of the minutes to approve of the 23rd of September 2021. Can I get somebody to... Thank you, Councillor Austin. Yeah, seconder. Thank you, Councillor Brown. No questions? No, that's fine. Okay, urgent business. I'm not aware of any urgent business at the moment, so that's fine. Item 3, exempt information. It may be that on item 9, St Anne's Chapel, we might have to go in, depending on where the questions lead to. Okay? Right. Good. Members, declarations of interest. To declare any personal or disclosable pecuniary interests, any declarations will need to state if the interest is personal or disclosable pecuniary and the nature of that interest. None? Right, thank you. All right, I'm just going to bring a couple pieces to Chairman's announcements. Item 5, business brought forward. I've got to put it in here that I attended the remembrance service at Totnes Church a week ago Sunday, and there were other members here that did so as well, and I thought it was a really, really nice service, and it's pleasing to be able to go back to that. I have a couple of invitations for this coming month. One is to the Dartmouth Fat Stock Show for the farming community. That is a real shot in the arm because that's probably one of the first things that as an agricultural community we've been able to hold since this COVID thing. And the other thing is I've also been invited to the passing out parade at Dartmouth Royal Naval College, and I have no intention of missing that because I've been to a couple already. Thank you. Right. Moving on from that, going on to staff awards. Members, I'll read this, but it's quite a long bit. Members, you will recall that the Audit Committee formally requested that, in recognition of the achievements of Council staff in supporting local residents, businesses and communities, the Council should convene a staff awards event. I'm pleased to confirm that an event has been arranged and nearly 100 nominations have been received, with a particular focus on work that have been undertaken during the pandemic. Members, I will again be invoking the revised meeting procedure rules that includes Rule 15.4, no speech may exceed 3 minutes without the consent of the Chairman of the Council. Okay? Right. At this moment, I would like Councillor Hopwood to make a statement. Thank you. It's not on there, is it?
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to apologise to my fellow members that I did not declare a financial interest at the start.
Councillor Hopwood, sorry, I don't think it's on.
Oh, sorry, talk. I would like to apologise to my fellow members that I did not declare a financial interest at the start of the special executive meeting on Thursday, 11th of November. I should have done so, and as soon as I was reminded of that by officers, I left the room immediately and took no further part in the meeting. After the meeting, I posted something on social media I probably shouldn't have said. I recognise and fully accept the fault was mine. It was right that I paid for the work rather than the council. I do hope that this will draw a line under the issue and we can all get on with what is most important, which is working in the interests of our communities to ensure our residents get the waste and recycling service they deserve. I hope that all members, all of us, will work together in a constructive way to bring that about. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood. I would now like to ask our Chief Executive, Andy. No, you can't. No questions. No. 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 because you can't. She's made a statement. You don't need to ask questions on that. I'm sorry, Councillor Pennington. That- Councillor Pennington, please. I don't think you can add anything to an event that we were. Oh. Yeah. Would you?
Councillor Pennington, the meeting was lawfully called, and there is no debate on the statement that Councillor Hopwood has made. That is the end of the matter.
Thank you. Right, I'd now like to call upon our Chief Executive to speak, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a very brief statement from me, please. I'm aware of a variety of concerns raised by a number of councillors over the comments of recent posts made by fellow councillors on social media. I think we'll all be aware of that. I would like to ask members to think carefully about posting messages that are critical of other members, and to please ensure that you do not bring the council into disrepute. The last 2 weeks, I think, have been quite difficult for this council collectively. The monitoring officer has issued further guidance, which I hope all members will find helpful. That was sent out to everybody yesterday. And in addition, guidance has been issued by the monitoring officer on the declarations of interest at meetings. I hope that will provide the guidance that we all need, and I would ask you to take consideration of it, please. Thank you all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bates. Right, we'll move on now on to item 6, annual review of the health and safety policy statement, page 15 on the agenda papers. Councillor Hawkins, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, the last 2 years have been, it's now an overused word, an unprecedented period in our history. Some of you will have known that I recently had COVID, and some of you will be very pleased I was self-quarantined for 10 days. That got rid of me for a 10-day period quite easily, so Judy was quite pleased I wasn't allowed out. I would just like to thank the NHS for all the hard work and effort they did in ensuring my safety. It was very efficiently done, and I would just like to say that publicly. I would also like to thank all the organisations in the South Hams, both voluntary and paid, for all the hard work and effort they have done to support all our communities. Those voluntary groups have stood, they've done amazing jobs, things that we probably could never have considered they would have been able to have achieved 2 years ago. And I'd like to also thank all our officers at South Hams District Council for all the hard work and effort they've done to support our communities and those voluntary groups. And that is very, very important for all of us, because that's the most important thing, is we're here to represent and look after our residents. The Council is required to prepare a written health and safety policy statement by the Health and Safety Act in 1974. The policy should be agreed and signed off by the head of paid service and the leader of the Council. The joint South Hams District Council and West Devon Borough Council health and safety policy documents the Council's position regarding its intentions, organisation and arrangements for ensuring the health, safety and welfare at work of their employees, and the health and safety of other persons working in or visiting our council facilities. And I'd just like to thank again all our officers, all our staff, for all the hard work and effort they do to protect all of us. The policy is required to be reviewed annually and, where appropriate, revised to reflect any significant change within the organisation. For this coming year, there are no changes of the policy. The Council is recommended to agree to adopt the joint health and safety at work policy represented by this report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Hawkins, I have a brief question, if I may. We thank the staff, which is great. If I refer you to paragraph 511.1, do you know whether Mr Luscombe or his team have considered the fact that there may very well be staff who are in fact smokers or vapors, and whether the policy that it's not permitted on any of the council's premises refers to external areas as well? Clearly it refers internally, but it is I declare a personal interest as a smoker come vapour. I can probably survive not doing so for the 2 hours that I'm at Fullerton House, but it occurs to me that somebody there for 8 or 9 hours perhaps might not be able to. So I just wonder whether any consideration has been given to external, clearly demarked smoking or vaping areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. As someone who's never ever smoked in my life, and thank heavens I never did, Mr Luscombe, would you answer that for us, please?
Yes, certainly. Good morning, members. The policy does take account of the fact that there might be smokers amongst the staff or the members, but the policy is quite clear that smoking is not prohibited either within the premises or in the external areas of the council's premises also. It's not permitted. So, to be clear, no smoking allowed on the council premises outside or inside.
You're talking about the whole property at Fullerton, for instance?
That's correct, yeah.
Right, thank you. Any other questions? Of course. Yeah.
We'll be watching you.
Councillor Thomas, behave.
No, I don't wish to move an amendment. That's fine. I've asked the question and I've received the answer. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Right, thank you. Right. No amendments, no questions. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
That's 29 in favour. Thank you, Chair.
Those against?
None against,
Any abstentions?
with one abstention. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, members. Right, that's that one. Item, yes, I'm still live. Move on to item 7, the 3-yearly review of the gambling statement of the licensing principles on page 37 on your papers. Councillor Brown, would you introduce it, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. It is a legal requirement that under GA05 to update our gambling statement of principles every 3 years. The statement sets out the licensing authority's approach to the regulation of gambling within the local area. In addition, the policy must promote the 3 licensing objectives under GA05, which are as follows: preventing gambling from being a source of crime or disorder, being associated with crime or disorder, or being used to support crime; ensuring that gambling is conducted in a fair and open way; and protecting children and other vulnerable persons from being harmed or exploited by gambling. While the policy statement may set out a general approach to the exercise of functions under the Act, the right of any person to make representation or to seek a review of a license where provision has been made for them to do so. The current statement of principles will be in effect until the 31st of January 2022. We therefore need to ensure that an updated version is approved and in effect before this date. The draft policy for consideration is at Appendix A in your agenda. We have undertaken a consultation with responsible authorities, local gambling businesses and other relevant organisations as per the requirements, a list of which is at Appendix B. We have come to you today to request that you consider the draft policy and the responses received during the consultation period. As the statement was updated in depth during the last review 3 years ago, it was not seen as necessary to make many significant changes to the document. Appendix C summarises the changes which have been made to the policy from the current version. Updates have been made to reflect the Gambling Commission's new guidance to local authorities and codes of practice. Other main changes include more information and detail on our exceptions relating to the separation of licensed premises and an update to our expectations in relation to children and vulnerable persons. We also have a new section on premises license plans and the further detail which we now require, including the positioning of gaming machines. We received 2 responses during the consultation period, which are Appendix D. I'll just add to that then that normally we would be seeking to approve this through the approval of something that was recommended to Council. Unfortunately, the licensing meeting wasn't quorate, thus this is being treated as an agenda item in the actual Council meeting itself, but those present at that what was informal licensing meeting did provisionally agree that this should be referred to Council and approved. I'll thank Mrs Stacey and Mr Luscombe for their hard work on this, and should members have any questions, Mr Luscombe is at the back of the room to answer them. I'll move the recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any questions? Ooh. Okay. Proposed and seconded, okay. Do we need to have any debate? No, right, okay, well, we'll go direct to the vote then. Mr White.
Thank you, Chair. All members in favour, please show. That's 29. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr White.
Any against?
Oh yeah, sorry, I don't think it was. Any abstentions?
There's 1 abstention. Thank you, Chair.
Right, okay. Sorry about that, I missed that. Right, we'll move on to item 8, garden waste scrutiny call-in, page 107 on the agenda. I'd first like to call upon Mr Fairbairn to say a few words before we proceed on this one.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I thought, as this was the first call-in that this particular council has had the opportunity of considering and being referred to it, I thought it was perhaps important to say something about call-in process and what it is and perhaps what it is not. The essence of a call-in is that a decision taken by a decision maker, be it the executive or an officer or indeed a portfolio holder, is contrary to the normal principles of good decision making. That means that the concern is that the decision maker failed to make a lawful decision, or one that was reasonable or proportionate, didn't reflect the general principles of the Code of Conduct, didn't have proper or appropriate consultation, didn't have regard to proper advice, and didn't have regard to the budget and policy framework. Those are the principles, and those are the concerns with which a call-in is concerned. In a way, it is comparable to a judicial review. It's about the process by which the decision was made, and not necessarily the substitution of the committee's own view of what the decision should have been. So the role of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, once a call-in is received, is to scrutinise the decision in detail, raise concerns based on those principles that I've just mentioned, and either refer their concerns to the decision maker, or in this case, to the full council. The minute that you have before you records the Overview and Scrutiny Committee's concerns. Now, the role of you today, the role of full council, is to consider those concerns and also the response from the executive. You are then invited to adjudicate on those concerns and the response. And you are not in the process, in doing so, reopening the waste or garden waste debate. The decision that you're asked to make is effectively a binary one. You either agree with the concerns or you don't agree with the concerns. If you agree with the concerns, then you refer the matter back to the executive for the executive to reconsider. On the other hand, if you do not agree with the overview and scrutiny concerns, the decision stands and becomes effective, and no further action is required. So, Chairman, that is the purpose of today, and I think I'll now hand over to Councillor Birch, who will, I think, move the concerns of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee.
Mr. Chair. Thank you very
Councillor
much.
Baldry.
Thank you. Can I just make a general point first? Is that this process should not in any way be construed as a criticism of the executive. What is behind the call-in is that it had, in making its decision, insufficient information, and I'll elaborate on that in a moment. The recommendation before full council is on the screen, and as you see, it just requests it's asking the council to request the executive to reconsider its decision, and that this is referred back to the executive. So, members, if you like to turn to page 109 of your papers, that sets out the 5 concerns that were put to the council by overview and scrutiny. It sets out the concerns that give rise to a possible request by this council to the executive to reconsider its decision. And rather than go through each and every one of those concerns, what I'd just like to emphasize is concern number 2 and concern number 3. Concern number 2 is that reads, the supporting report incorrectly states that there are no financial implications arising. The suspension of the garden waste collection service from mid-August 2021 until spring 2022 will in all probability have financial implications. Now, the report to the executive at its meeting on the 14th of October dealing with the garden waste collection stated, as I've just mentioned a moment ago, there are no financial implications arising. The report overlooked the amount being charged by FCC for the garden waste collection. With this collection being suspended until spring 2022, the anticipated cost saving to the council is mounting up, and as such should have been included in the report and considered by the executive. The other concern is that there was insufficient consideration and/or reporting given to the provisions of the contract with FCC. Now, part 4.1 of the report to the executive at its meeting on the 14th of October, dealing with the garden waste collection, sets out 5 options. Option 3 deals with the use of an alternative provider, but unfortunately does not deal adequately with the council's rights under the contract with FCC. This should have been set out and should have been an important factor in determining the decision relating to the suspension of the garden waste collection, and as such should have been included in the report. This is an aspect that should have been included in the report and considered by the executive. It was not. Now, the executive had a special meeting in which they considered these concerns, and on page 111 of your papers, the executive's response to concerns 2 and 3 reads as follows. the Council has followed the correct contractual procedure regarding the suspension of the garden waste service. That process is a formal contractual change notice issued on the 22nd of October. With respect to this response from the Executive, it really does not address the points that I have just set out. So, that being the case, I would like to move the recommendation, and that the recommendation is that this Council requests the Executive to reconsider its decision in the light of the concerns that come from ONS, and in particular concerns 2 and 3 that I've just addressed to you. So I'd like to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brodry, and I'll apologise for getting my B's mixed up just now. Birch, sorry, I was thinking about something else. Hang on. I am getting my B's mixed up. Councillor Brazil, another B, going to second it, did you say? I thought Councillor Smurden was going to. Yeah. Seconder? Right, okay. If you've got a question, Councillor Pennington, yes. Can you?
I have concerns. I agree with what has been said in a way, but I have concerns about discussing this, because if that was with relation to the agenda item 10 on the 11th of November, were you relating to that? Could I ask first? The 11th of November.
Are you, Councillor Pennington? Normally, you order. Are you raising a point of order?
Well, what I have my concern is that the meeting was unconstitutional, because I've looked at our constitution and 5 clear dates should have been given to all 31 councillors that meeting was taking place. I didn't even know it was taking place, otherwise I would have gone. So it was unconstitutional. I'm sorry. It was just brought in.
Councillor Pennington, can you allow our monitoring officer to answer your query, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As I've already explained, Councillor Pennington, the meeting that you refer to as lawfully called is not the subject of this debate or this item. So the point you raise is not relevant. But the meeting, for the record, was lawfully called.
Councillor Pennington, can you turn your microphone off, please?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Right. Where am I at the moment?
It's been seconded.
Yeah.
So it's now the executive to respond. So I think it's Judy to respond.
Right. Can we have are we going to respond? Yeah, but yeah, it's been seconded. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Pearce, would you like to? Is Councillor Baldry going to do it, is he? Okay, right.
We haven't rehearsed this at all, Chairman, thank you. I have absolutely no idea whether Councillor Pearce is going to agree with what I'm going to say. As has already been pointed out, this is a decision for this full council. The executive did meet, and you have the benefit of our discussions on the items which were put forward by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which are, I think, on pages 111 and 112. I've got nothing further to add to those comments on the call-in, except to say, on the financial aspects, at the time and still now, we were not aware of the full financial implications. And of course, Councillor Birch is right. There are costs involved and savings to be made from not doing the garden waste collection. But that has not yet been finalised. That is a discussion which will take place between our legal people and our operational people and FCC. At the time, we have no idea what the financial implications are going to be. So the paper which came before the executive is absolutely correct. At the right time, we will get into negotiations with FCC about a revision in the amount they claim from us. But this has not yet been finalised. So for Councillor Birch to say, yes, correctly, there probably will be savings to be made, but yet we do not know what they are.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Right. So we'll move on. Councillor Smurden?
Thank you, Chair. With regard to the overview and scrutiny, other procedure rules in the Council Constitution adopted in 2021, under the rules regarding the call-in, the Chair of ONS has the right, under item 12.4, to call in a key decision of the Executive. And we had it confirmed that this was a key decision. The rules state that uniquely the Chair has the right to make that call-in decision. However, after this, under items 12.6, 12.61 and 12.62, the full ONS committee, not just the Chair, has the right, if concerned, to take various courses of action open to them after debating the issue. I was concerned that the recommendation and proposed remedies submitted by Councillor Birch were those of the Chair alone, and that the democratic process of the committee was in danger of being overridden. And I relayed those concerns to the Chief Executive Officer and the Monitoring Officer prior to the meeting. The ONS committee members had very little notice of the cut and dried recommendation on the screen that would be put before them. The Chair having the right to call the decision in is one thing, and I support that. But surely the committee should be free to debate and reach its own conclusions, the Chair being part of, but not leading, that debate. The ONS meeting held on the 13th of October, at which FCC were grilled, showed all members of ONS working together to provide a unanimous response and recommend that the Executive set up a cross-party working group. In my view, that is the way to deal with issues surrounding FCC and the way forward, and I absolutely look forward to that group starting work as soon as possible. As Vice Chair of ONS, I normally do my utmost and my best to support the Chair and to work in the best interest of the Council, but on this case, I was unable to. I hope that if the circumstances of a call-in should arise again, that the Chair of ONS will adopt a more inclusive approach. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Smurden. Right. Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say that I feel that we throw this whole argument around waste and garden waste in particular. It keeps coming back. It's one thing for us to have the conversation in this room and at our meetings, and I fully agree with what's being proposed here. But I actually feel very strongly that we need to offer our residents hope, and I'm concerned about the length of the agenda for this meeting, that my motion is actually the last on the agenda, and I've already been forewarned that even the one before that is unlikely to be heard. So I feel really that we need to make it clear that as we move forward with this, we will actually have a much more open mind to how we're dealing with waste in a sustainable way. Not only sort of financially sustainable, but we've just come out of COP26. COP26 sustainable too. And I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I really have very little to say on this one because at the emergency meeting of the Executive, our replies were given. And I still believe that the short reply given to points 2 and 3, the concerns 2 and 3, raised by the Chairman of Overview and Scrutiny, I still believe that the response to that was correct. And as Councillor Baldry, the Executive Member for the Environment, has said, remain correct at the moment because we are still awaiting a response from FCC. It has been a principle all along that the contract with FCC is commercially sensitive and that therefore is not discussed in open forum, and so was not discussed at that meeting, and I don't think will be discussed today. So I would urge members to reject this recommendation, which I have seen for the first time and even now can't read properly because it's on the screen behind me and I haven't got any other version of it. So I don't know. I hope I should be voting for the right thing, but I really don't know what I'm voting for or against. But I shall definitely be voting against it. This whole call-in business has been a waste of time when officers have got better things to do. Has it achieved getting one more bin emptied? No, it hasn't. It is about process. The process was duly followed. At every stage, we had the backing of the monitoring officer and the chief executive for what we wanted to do. And I do not believe that anything has been done wrongly, and that the replies we gave at the last meeting still stand, and so there is absolutely no point in referring it back to the executive.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Is there anybody else? If not, Councillor Mackay, you reserve the right to speak. Councillor Paddington, I'll come to you in a sec. Okay, sorry. Yeah, you go first. Yeah. Can you switch on your mic? I know it's a fiddle, but
Because I was one of the audit committee members that revised the Constitution a couple of years ago, and it clearly states there in black and white, I've got it here, I can quote it if you like, that 5 days' notice must be given before a meeting is called on 5 days. I didn't know anything about it, neither did any of the others, apart from about 3 who picked it up from somewhere. And so, therefore, you had a meeting there without giving 5 days' notice. Now, that can't be dismissed. It's in our Constitution, and we must abide by the Constitution, like it or not. And so, therefore, we're discussing a meeting that should never have taken place.
can you switch off your mic again, please? Thank you. The monitoring officers advised me that he would like to have an explanation to you after the meeting, okay, to explain where we are. Right, Councillor Mackay, would you like to sum up, please? And then I've got to come back to Councillor.
I'm not sure I'm going to be summing up, but I just wanted to comment on what Councillor Smearden said. I don't believe that Councillor Birch dominated the meeting, and he put up the set of recommendations at the beginning of the meeting, and that it was in the gift of the committee at that point to amend them and change them. It was a starting point for a discussion. That was all. I don't believe that there was plenty of opportunities to change and amend the recommendations that finally emerged from the meeting. So I don't think that's fair criticism. One of the reasons I'm supporting this motion is that I think there are some monies being saved. Clearly there are. We're not allowed to disclose sums, but I think that it's generally recognised what those sums are, and they are significant. And I would have liked the executive to give them proper consideration to things like composting schemes, etc., to address these issues. And this doesn't seem to be happening. I think there's a real opportunity there at the moment, and this refers to the COP26 reference that was just made. And the other, I think that's it. So I mean, this is why I'm supporting it, and I hope other members can as well.
Thank you, Councillor Mackay. Councillor Birch, would you like to now sum up, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. And in the interests of seeking to maintain harmony in the council chamber, I won't react to what has been said by Councillor Smearden and Councillor Pearce. Can I just say, as far as just 2 points though, as far as the point made by Councillor Smearden, I actually did send to him a copy of the proposed recommendation that was going to go to ONS. I think it was sent to him 2 days before, and in fact he came to the meeting prepared to make an amendment. So I think that is an unfair allegation there, Councillor Smearden. Secondly, Councillor Pearce, as far as this you're saying has just appeared, the fact is, earlier on this week, and I think it was Monday, I did send a proposed recommendation to the officers and asked for that it be circulated. As a result of exchange of emails and discussions with the officers as to what should be put before you, this wording was agreed with the officers yesterday evening, and so that's why it wasn't circulated. So there was an attempt there to try and make certain that we didn't have an unnecessary debate as to the content of the recommendation. So as far as this is concerned, I don't believe it was a waste of time. I think it's brought to the fore issues concerning what is going to happen to the monies, or what should happen to the monies that are being saved by this council. And secondly, what is this council going to do in addressing its contractual relationship with FCC? And that is something, as I said, I think that the executive should have considered. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Right, members, we'll now go to the vote. Those in favour of the motion?
That's 13 in favour. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Those against?
And 17 against. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you, members. Now, the leader wishes to say something now. She's already discussed this with the leader of the opposition and wants to make a statement. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chairman. This is regarding the request for a waste working group to be set up. Following discussions and with the agreement of the leader of the opposition group, we will be taking a report to the executive next week to agree the terms of reference and the membership of the group. The group will be cross-party and its focus will be on reviewing the management of the existing service and evaluating the options to improve the service. The first meeting will take place before the end of December, but I understand that at the moment there's a provisional date in for the 16th of December.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Brazil, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, just to say, no, that I welcome this way forward, and I'm sure if it agrees with what John and I say, then there won't be any problems. No, I mean, you know, it's obviously that we need to sort something out for our residents, and I think that this is a sensible way forward, so I welcome it, and I welcome members of the council's comments at the executive, which will look at the terms of reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. We move on to item 9, St Anne's Chapel Housing Report. Councillor Holway, you want to say something?
Just briefly, that date of the 16th does appear to be full of meetings now, and I just make that point. So,
right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think that was because there is another meeting in the afternoon, is there not? Yeah, okay. All right, there's a solution the other side of the table. Right, okay. Right, okay. Can I go on to item 9 now? Right, yeah, thank you. St Anne's Chapel Housing Report on page 113 of the agenda. And this I did say, if we start venturing into certain things, we might have to go into exempt information. We'll see how it goes, okay? So, Councillor Pearce, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Thank you. I think all members will understand from the report that this has been a very challenging project to bring forward. But nevertheless, in the context of the housing crisis that we have declared, it is very important that we do bring forward affordable housing. The first requirement for any affordable housing project is that the demand is proven. And I can assure you that in the area of St Anne's Chapel, the demand is proven. There are already a number of housing association houses in St Anne's Chapel, but in the immediate area, I think there are 2 in Ringmore and 1 in Bigbury, so there is not a lot of affordable housing in the immediate area, and I think the local member would know and confirm this. Now, this has been really challenging to bring forward. Originally, it was a joint project with the South Brent Community Housing Scheme, Community Land Trust Scheme. Sorry, yes, Community Land Trust Scheme. But for various reasons, that's been held up still. And then COVID hit us. And since then, everybody knows what's happened to building material prices and all the rest of it since. So it's had to go out to contract again. The price has considerably gone up. And we have really been trying to make the figures balance out. That's, if you like, the good side and the bad side of it. But I think the really good side is what a good development this is going to be and what nice houses these are going to be to live in, and comfortable houses, cheap to run, well insulated. One of the reasons that small projects are hard to bring forward and why you won't get commercial developers doing them with any gusto is because it's often hard to get a proper density arrangement on a small site. You therefore have extra roads and areas that have to be serviced and longer distances to take the service pipes and things in, all of which adds to the cost. This is typical of that, and it's got location-specific abnormalities requiring the provision of acoustic boundary fencing, extensive ecological works. I seem to remember there was a pond at the bottom of the site from the site visit there a long time ago, and a non-uniform shape that affects the length of the access road and service runs. So there will be some community open space which will allow residents and young families to interact, and the retired or less mobile to get out of the house. This can lead to a feeling of belonging and community, and there will be retired people at home able to take in deliveries for those out at work, for instance, and keeping half an eye on the children playing, and younger people able to help in return by perhaps bringing in shopping, although the shop is almost next door to the site. And maybe the youngsters can help with the oldies get online and things like that. So there is a lot of advantage in having a really mixed community site like this. The houses on the development are larger than the minimum space standards because this development recognises that people and their lifestyles change over time, and their homes need to be able to change and adapt with them. The lifetime home standard has been adopted throughout the design by the council and allows for this by subscribing to the basic concepts of inclusivity, accessibility, adaptability, and sustainability. The houses will be very energy efficient. I was impressed when Mr. Brooke told me how much insulation there was going to be in the roof. And this has been assured by a fabric-first design. This cuts the costs for tenants and provides greater comfort and higher standards of living. The UK average dual fuel bill is £1,131 a year, or at least was until recently.
Councillor Pearce, I hate to do this to you, but
It's
rules are rules.
Right. Well, sorry, I was given too much bump
That's okay.
to talk to, but basically it's a good scheme. Happy to answer any questions, and I do have officers at the back if there's anything beyond that.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. No, you're quite right.
Councillor Birch.
2.4 of the, sorry, I'll stand up. 2.4 of the report confirms that there was a report went to the executive in September 2020 recommending the signing of a construction contract to complete this, this scheme. And yet we move on to 2.5, where in December 2020, a construction contract had not yet been signed, but a letter of intent was issued with a view to entering into a contract. And then reading between the lines at 2.5, something's gone awfully wrong. I wonder if the officers could explain the reasons why, or what went wrong, and why wasn't there a construction contract signed immediately after the executive meeting? Because if that had happened, we wouldn't be having this discussion today, and in fact this scheme would probably be 12 months on. So I think members should be given an explanation as to why there was a delay, or why they didn't get to the stage of entering into a building contract. And after the answer to that, I do have a supplementary.
Councillor Birch. Have we
I
got...
will give the reply that, as I recall, and officers can add to it.
Okay.
I should be grateful to be helped out, I think. But as I recall, there were last-minute problems with the mortgage arrangements at South Brent, and I believe that's why the contract wasn't signed immediately. But if officers can elucidate on that at all, I'd be pleased for them to do so.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, the contract was tendered with South Brent, and there was a saving to the council if both parts of the contract could be signed. It could be taken forward individually or together. So there was a period of time where we tried to resolve the South Brent scheme, which was all part of, that was all aligned to what we were expecting to happen. We got to the point where it was clear that South Brent wasn't able to proceed. That took a few months, but that was all acceptable from the contractor's perspective. But during that time, when we then got to the point where we actually wanted to proceed with St Anne's Chapel, we were then prepared to sign the contract, but they were not. They were only prepared to work under a more limited scope. They did at least basically fence the site off. That letter of intent was clearly, it is exactly that. We had intent, but you can't force the other party to come and deliver their part of the bargain. We gave them ample opportunity. Essentially, I think the price they had committed to was one that they then were going to struggle to make good business sense from, and so they chose to walk away. So we did everything we could, but obviously you can't force them to sign up to something that they're not prepared to do for business reasons. And that's where we got to.
Thank you. Councillor Birch, you've got a supplementary.
Yes. I'd ask, so in September 2020, the names of the successful contractor was known. I think it was in part 2. I'd had some very unfortunate experiences with the recommended contractor, and I did suggest to the officers that they give a close and careful examination to appointing that contractor. Unfortunately, the advice that I gave officers was not followed, and as a result, we're now in the situation we are. So I'd rather ask perhaps the officers to comment as to why they pursued appointed.
Councillor Birch, we're going to have to move into part 2.
Well, I'm trying to avoid the need to do that.
Yeah, well, I've been advised by the monitoring officer that we're going to have to.
No. I think all I need to know is why was it that particular contract? Why was it a contract with that contractor pursued in the light of the information provided to this council?
Chairman, could I ask that Councillor Birch speaks to the officers outside the meeting rather than go into part 2?
I think members are entitled to an explanation as to, because
That's fine.
We are in a situation where we are a year behind.
Look, Councillor Birch, I understand you're passionate about this, but if I've been advised by the monitoring officer we've got to go into part 2, into part 2 we will go. So I will have to do that. I'm sorry.
Well, in that case, I'll withdraw the question so we don't have to go into part 2. I'll leave it at that. Yes.
All right, that's fine.
Can we,
Is that okay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Perhaps, I'm sure the officers would like to discuss it with Councillor Birch outside the meeting, so if he could well do that.
Are you content? Right, thank you for that. Okay. Right, where am I now? We're into the debate. Any more questions first? But no. Yeah, that's okay. I got Councillor Hodgson first. Oh no, you haven't either. Can I have a recommendation?
I'll move the recommendations at 1, 2, and Oh, one, two. There is a question. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought the questions are finished. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions really about the housing itself. One is, as you know, as a member of the planning committee for the last 10 years or something, one thing that comes up time and time again is why hasn't a developer applied solar orientation? So I just wanted to be sure that that will be applied, and if not, why not? Because obviously that would include sort of a passive design, so that would be larger windows on the south-facing windows and PV on the roof to actually help the new residents to actually be able to afford their energy bills and support. Sorry, these are fair questions about new housing. I think I've actually only occupied about a minute so far, if you don't mind. And the third point I just wanted to ask was about whether or not we could actually think about this potentially moving into some social housing delivery, if it works out well, that we could actually have that as part of the programme. Because we're looking at 50 years. I mean, social housing is a crying need in this area. And while I realise what I'm doing, I've looked heavily through the figures. There's a certain, lack, sort of 50 years hence is difficult to determine. And if it's at all possible, I'd like it in there that we would move into some social affordable rentals if financially viable as time goes on with this project. Thank you.
I'm sure you'll bring it up in the debate, and I don't disagree with some of the things you say.
That was questions.
Any other questions?
Up and down like a yo-yo today. Right. So the orientation. Councillor Hodgson, I fully understand what you're talking about. I know that some of the houses are suitably orientated, but when you're working on a small site, it isn't possible to give every house the maximum prime orientation. They are all being wired for solar panels, but I understand that solar panels aren't being fitted initially. Now, as for social rents, these houses are going to be affordable rent, but what we're guaranteeing is that the affordable rent is capped at the local housing allowance. So in other words, most of the occupants will be able to claim benefits if they are eligible for them up to the local housing allowance, and they won't have any extra housing costs to pay. I think I'm right in saying that. Officers can confirm if I've got it. Well, they can stand up and tell me if I've got it wrong, if I have got it wrong, but I think that's the reply to your question. It's not possible with the costs of providing these houses to go to social rent. I know that everybody wants to do it, but I think affordable rent, when it's capped at the local housing allowance, because often it isn't by our registered providers, is the next best option that we can offer.
Just one of the officers want to add anything? No. No, if you don't want to, that's fine. Okay. Councillor Smurden and then Councillor Hopwood.
Oh, thank you. Under 3.5, it says that the affordable rented dwellings will be made available for rent at the Plymouth local housing allowance, as opposed to the South Hams one. I note,
Is it right? Is it right